Good afternoon to our amazing delegates and good afternoon to Mike Daniel, and thank you so very much for doing this. Now, I don't particularly like doing bios. I asked Mike for a fun fact. So these words are not from me, delegates. Mike said he is a dumb miner by profession and got tricked into logistics. So Mike, over to you, please. And I'm sure that is not true, the dumb part, but the logistics part, I'm sure you'll do a fantastic job. Over to you and all the best.
Thank you very much. I trust you can all hear me. I've just got to figure out the screen sharing bit. Share. Here we go.
The life of online, gotta love it.
Yes, that's wonderful, isn't it? Oh, there we go. So the share button's blue, so can you see me now?
Just in full presentation mode.
Presentation mode. Bang. Oops. Right, there we go. Can everybody see my screen? Back to presentation mode.
Perfect.
Are we good to go?
Absolutely. Take it away.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much, bro. I'm not speaking about any of these fantastic subjects that I've heard this morning about sustainable supply chains and supply chain 2030. I'm going to dumb it down a bit, and I'm talking about bimodal logistics. And it's something that is very dear to my heart and something that I'm going to enjoy sharing with you. Bimodal is a disruptive and innovative mode of transportation, providing a seamless, integrated rail and road logistics solution. So the truckers say to me, Mike, why are you anti-trucking? I say, no, I'm not. The first mile, the last mile is always on road. And the rail guys say, well, Mike, why are you anti-rail and pro-trucking? And I say, you know what? On rail, we run the longest distance. So that is the secret, and that is the definition of bimodal. It's a logistics form that can run on two modes of transport. And the one that we're looking at today is a bimodal logistics solution that can run on road and rail and can move from road to rail and rail to road. So we had this new wonderful bridge opened in the north of Botswana. So we could, in theory, take a load on rail from Durban or Cape Town or Gqeberha up to Francistown on rail, jump onto road, cross into Zambia, put the load back onto rail, and proceed to northern Zambia. Some people call it the copper belt, I think. So we facilitate the migration of freight from road to rail. And if there's no road, we use rail. And if there's no rail, we use road. We add freight capacity and private sector investment. So there's been a lot of talk about open access and Transnet Freight Rail becoming the owner and maintainer of the rail and the slots, but not having so much to do with the operations of the trains. By using bimodal logistics, we can lower the national logistics cost. We believe in that we can drop it by about 20%. We can also drop the generation of greenhouse gases. And what we're looking to do here is to broaden supply development. Instead of having a monopoly transporting all the freights on rail, we can develop smaller, more nimble, lower overhead companies that could do this. We increase the operators' revenues and profits for both road and rail. And we do this because we supply a service to the trucking industry and a service to the rail industry. So let's go through a few of the options and understand why RailRunner is best suited for the South African and the SADC region. So on the left-hand side, we have a flat rail car with single stack containers on it, running under a catenary wire, and that is typical for Cape Gauge in South Africa, Cape Gauge in the UK, but it's not typical for the US. On the right-hand side, we have RailRunner technology, which is also a single stack. It consists of trailers and rail bogies, and we'll talk more about that a bit later. On the left, we have double stack. The American railroads have invested very heavily in multi-billions of dollars to roll out double stack. So you have a well car so that you drop the bottom, the floor of the bottom container as close to the rail as possible. You put a second container on top of it, and you run it from the east coast of America to the west coast. And the entire rail system is geared to handle that height. We talk about a moving gauge. So that double stack can operate within the moving gauge of all the railroads in America. On the right, we have what we call Iron Highway. Iron Highway is a trailer, and it's a specially designed and manufactured trailer, which is picked up by a crane and placed on a rail car. And you can understand that the mere fact of picking up 20 or 30 tons in a trailer and placing it on a flat car, the trailer has to be designed for that and has to be able to withstand those lifting forces. Right, then when we get to bimodal technology, there's two of those. And on the left, we have what is called road railer. And with road railer, number one, the strength is in the box. So the box shape of the car has the strength. And you can see that rail chassis is very basic. There's 2 axles, 4 wheels, and some brakes, and that's it. Whereas if you look at the RailRunner unit on the right-hand side, it's more sophisticated. There's more equipment on that rail bogie. There's even 8 air suspension sockets there. And believe it or not, both systems were designed by one man. He first designed the road railer. He then decided he could improve on that design, and he then designed the RailRunner. The basic difference, road railer, the strength is in the monocoque design of the box, and only rear entry doors. On the RailRunner on the right, the strength is in that yellow beam that you see under the box. And because that yellow beam carries all the stresses and strains of acceleration and deceleration, the top can be replaced with anything that is on road currently. So here's a little video. What is RailRunner? There's no sound, so I will continue to talk. If any of you want to access this video later on, you'll find the YouTube address on the top right-hand corner of the slide. So here we have the RailRunner unit reversing onto a bogie, and as quickly as what a truck driver can reverse, one can push a trailer onto a bogie. So we have a special, this bogie, which is called an intermediate bogie, and a road trailer would sit on either side of it with the wheels hanging underneath. We take the wheels with us. We just don't take the horse. And there again, under the catenary wire, on a level graded surface, you can reverse a trailer onto an intermediate unit. Here comes the transition unit. That is the unit that transitions the train to the locomotive. So our design in South Africa is to have 40 or 50 units, all moved by one locomotive. The first question I get at about this point, it's difficult not having the audience ask questions and interact. First question, the question I get at about this time is, how long does it take to build a train? And the answer to that is half a day. So we always say RailRunner can offer the same service as a truck plus a day, because we need half a day to build the train, half a day to break the train, and the first and last miles are always on road. So here's a close look at the bogie. Simple, fast implementation, compatible with regular freight trains, train forming under catenaries is possible, and flexible bogie change. So if we find that we have a rail bridge washed away or other problems on the rail, a derailed train in front of us, we can actually break this train at a level crossing, get some horses there, and we can move around that obstruction and reconstitute the train on the other side. So no freight is left behind. So we've got some trailer designs on the top left-hand corner. That's this container. It's actually a half-height container, because we can insert a bladder into it, fill it with fuel, take it to a mine site, empty the fuel, store the bladder, and load mining product into that half-height container and take it back to the port. Below that is a side tipper for manganese, chrome, coal. Any domestic mineral can be transported in that. We wouldn't try and compete with the heavy haul lines of the iron ore line or the coal line. They are bespoke. They are special animals, and people come from all over the world to look at how Transnet hook and haul the coal and the iron ore. And so basically what's happening here is we would build the train and Transnet would hook and haul it like a iron ore or a coal train. So we're using the strengths of private enterprise to obtain the cargo, build the train, and at the same time use the strengths of Transnet, which is world-class at hook and haul. Top right-hand side is a hard-sided trailer. You'll notice the doors on the side. So we have doors at the back and on the side, both sides. And because of the strength of the trailer is in the floor, we can do that. And that can transport dry goods. We can drop a generator underneath it, and we can do cold chain with it. So that is a very versatile, hard-sided trailer. We do curtain-sided trailers, flat trailers. Anything that you can see on road can go onto RailRunner. And at the bottom there, we're showing you 3 vehicles safely ensconced in a RailRunner trailer. The regulatory environment is driving change. I'm not sure if you are aware, but the DRC is implementing laws that allow only DRC-registered trucks and logistics companies to carry DRC products. Zambia is installing a network of toll booths, only for foreign-owned trucks, not for locally owned trucks. Botswana are requiring local drivers delivering goods in Botswana. And in South Africa, foreign truck drivers aren't welcome. We've witnessed many vehicles being torched and unrest prior to the Zuma unrest, just on the basis of local companies using foreign truck drivers. And these actions are continually increasing the cost of logistics in SADC, and thereby prices of consumer goods are increasing. And this isn't sustainable. You know, the income of the consumers in the SADC area isn't increasing at the same rate of the costs. And this is where RailRunner comes into its own. It will be able to transport loaded Trident trailers into any SADC country and empower the local drivers to complete the in-country delivery. So a South African driver could drive from the factory to the terminal. The trailer could be built into a train. It could then be hauled off into any SADC country, put back on the ground, and a local horse and driver could come and complete the last mile of delivery. So our market focus. Our terminal locations would be at a port, a city, a factory, a farm, a hinterland, or a riverside. Riverside if we're doing riverside transport. Our vertical markets: sea container, trailer, bulk carrier, liquids, reefer, chemicals, aggregates, forestry products. We could go from forest to factory, or from sugarcane field to processing factory. Rail mode, we can go dedicated lane, feeder, or sideline, and we can do mixed freight on rail as well. Our units tend to be lighter than conventional rail units, so we tend to like to stick onto the back of any freight train. And then cross grade, so we can facilitate border crossings and legacy rail lines. If you want to move from a Cape gauge to a standard gauge, or a standard gauge to a Cape gauge, or to meter gauge, as we have up in Africa, RailRunner can facilitate this change. So typical bimodal solutions are pit to port, farm to fork, storage tank to fuel tank. Something that's big in the States and starting to get traction in this country: identity preserved crops and goods, ship to distribution center, and distribution center to sorting center, and then drones, bicycles, scooters are used to move the goods from the sorting center to the client, to the end user. So I mentioned before that the bogie has air suspension, so we have the air ride suspension, so we can transport fragile goods. We have radial steering on it, so that reduces the wear on the rail and the wheel. Our units in the States have been running for 20 years, both the bogies and the trailers, on road and rail, and we haven't scrapped any units yet, so their life is fairly good. It's a compact light rail vehicle, and when we say light rail, a conventional flat car that carries containers weighs about 20 tons. If we compare that to a RailRunner vehicle, we would weigh about half of that. So even in transferring an empty train from point A to point B, we use less tractive effort, less diesel, and are more environmentally friendly than conventional rail vehicles. And that is how we lower the energy consumption. So we now have a vehicle that can go on road and rail, is lighter than a conventional rail vehicle, and has a lighter footprint on the environment. So we call it a revolution. We load at origin, we load and lock your precious cargo into a RailRunner controlled environment on a RailRunner trailer for secure transport on rail and road, and you unlock and unload at the destination. So very much the way we've used ISO containers, seagoing ISO containers, one can use a RailRunner trailer in the same way for local transport. Locked, sealed, and safe from theft, damage, contamination from germs or viruses in the same container or trailer from origin to destination. Our promise: security, quality, safety, and hands-free. RailRunner pays its way. Efficient, low-cost terminal anywhere. And now we're getting into the terminal anywhere. Low barriers to entry, promote intra-SADC trade, lift in GDP of these countries, and maximize existing SADC rail infrastructure to create trade corridors. I spoke earlier about moving from Durban to Francistown on rail, back onto road in Francistown, across into Zambia, and then back onto rail. If one does that and gets that trade corridor flowing, it will attract finance. The banks will come, they will see that that corridor is generating cash, they will see that there's a want and that there is a flow of goods on that corridor, and that will enable investment and will improve the state of the infrastructure And slowly but surely over time, that trade corridor will become stronger and stronger. RailRunner reduces logistics costs by up to 20%, and that figure has been calculated in South Africa. I'm told when you go across our northern borders, well, all of our borders, the saving will increase because a lot of those costs are dollar-based costs rather than rand-based costs. Our CO2 outputs are reduced by about 40%. That is a comparison of a trailer being on road versus rail. And RailRunner will therefore be able to generate significant carbon tax credits. Cost externalities of freight. Road on the left, a comparison of road and rail on the right, and you can see the difference. It's huge. Rail's 4%, road is 96%, but that road is not only for the transport of freight. It's for passenger transport, it's for private vehicles and that type of thing. So let's halve it or take a third of it, and that would be the kind of saving that we could look at. Solid automated covers. We had to look at this because we can't put tarpaulins onto vehicles running on rail. A torn tarpaulin would pull the catenary wire down, wrap itself around the catenary wire, pull it down, and we would do more damage than the cable thieves. So these covers have been developed by industry specialists, speed up turnaround times, increases revenue per load, reduces product losses, improves load security, fuel efficiency. Again, we have a greenhouse gas emissions reduction, and then safety through personalized safety protocols and ongoing training. 2:00 in the morning when the trailers come through a rainstorm and it's all wet, nobody has to climb upstairs to undo a tarpaulin. It is all manageable via the hydraulic system. So faster, safer, and more effective than a tarpaulin. Terminal anywhere solution. So now we're looking at terminals and smart terminals. So on the left, you can see that fancy crane that is picking up a trailer, and the trailer is going onto a flat car. It's called trailer on flat car, and that requires expensive crane loading and a significant investment. Where on the right, the RailRunner bimodal is a simple craneless connectivity, and the investment is minimal. So on the left, you're talking about a runway like a jumbo jet lands on. That's the type of concrete, reinforced concrete you have to have as paving for these heavy pieces of equipment to work on. And on the left, you're really talking about a paved parking lot or some dirt level with the top of the tracks, and that can become a terminal anywhere solution. So we're giving universal access. If we look at the expensive terminal, that would cost about 100 million to 200 million rand, whereas the terminal anywhere would cost around 10 million rand. So you can roll out your terminals a lot quicker, and you can get more terminals into place. So it's a low terminal cost, no heavy cranes, minimum ground preparation, and the terminal can be operated under the wire or under the catenary, under the electrical wire. In train operations, it takes significant time to shunt a train from under the catenary wire to a rail that's open, and that can allow cranes to access the cargo. So once again, this is a delay, or not a delay, but a procedure that has to be done where you have electrically driven trains, which doesn't have to happen when you're using RailRunner rolling stock. Interoperable RailRunner terminal anywhere. We can operate in a legacy crane terminal, we can operate in any of these terminals, or we can operate on a siding as long as the ground is level. Drive on, drive off, no cranes, and fast connectivity. So we can build and break a train of 40 units in about 4 hours. Rail flexible, dedicated, mixed blocks, mixed freight. We've spoken about this. If the rail ends, we can move on to road. If the road ends, we can move on to rail. Smart terminals or dry points. I did a fair amount of investigation, and there's some facts and figures that I can share with you a bit later. But it would appear that you build two terminals, a physical one and a digital terminal, and by using the Internet of Things, big data, blockchain technologies, augmented reality, you can operate these terminals, and the automation and the integration and the digitization can be amazing, and your efficiencies increase with the smartness of the terminal. Nodal property development. Now, one of the things that RailRunner will require is partners for the construction maintenance of the required bimodal terminals. These terminals would typically include workshops, fuel, lubricant sales, supply of accommodation, food preparation and supply. Everybody talks about truck stops. So whether we're going to have a truck stop or whether we're going to have a rail stop, it's the same basic concept, that wherever we move from road to rail or rail to road, we will require a terminal, and we will require people there supplying food, supplying maintenance. Now, the opportunity exists to develop large tracts of land associated with terminals for private industrial and commercial uses to ensure both development revenues and long-term rental and lease income for the owner. Once RailRunner South Africa moves into the SADC region, the installed rail quality is often poor, with train speeds being reduced. The infrastructure owner will now have the funds to address this, because the train operator will be paying access fees, and these access fees will be able to be deployed in getting the rail infrastructure up to the required standards. Nodal property development, this is something that was looked at, BNSF Logistics Park in Chicago. And you'll see on the left-hand side, there's the terminal. And all the land on the right-hand side is various factories and logistics operators and companies that actually use the terminal or send freight on the terminal. So that whole development was created because there was a small terminal in the left-hand corner, and the companies that use that facility grew their infrastructure and their factories and their manufacturing capability around the terminal. We see very much the same thing happening here. RailRunner South Africa's road and rail vehicles, terminal layout, and the design of Terminal Anywhere. We require support to construct, maintain these critical operation nodes. The original USA rail development was associated with land grants, and each side of the railway line was given a right-of-way, and property developers amassed huge returns from that new rail activity. I think they got 10 miles on either side of the rail, and that was the payment for building the rail from the East Coast to the West Coast. I'm almost finished. I think I've got one or two more slides to go. And so we can move freight from road to rail. We've discussed that. Access to and from railheads, socially responsible. If we get this right, the truck driver will not be on the road between Cape Town and Johannesburg at night. He'll be at home, where he can help with his upbringing of his children. Transport any product currently on road safely and efficiently. We've mentioned that. We've gone through the different trailers. Real-time cargo tracking enhances cargo security and insurance savings. Secure transport, once again an insurance saving. Smooth ride, air suspension. A small intra-vehicle distance, so it's aerodynamic. It also prevents, it's so close that people cannot get in and open the doors. So it assists with security, reduced noise pollution, lowers cost of logistics, and terminal and nodal development is achieved. Now, I spoke earlier about a half-height container with a bladder in it. This is a short video where we can see the fuel being transported in the bladder. And bladders often, I'll wait until the music's finished and we can talk further. But that braking was to show that the bladder wouldn't burst under braking. That's when the most stress is on the bladder. And I think I've done quite well. I finished in 31 minutes. So I will stop sharing, and Pearl, we can go to questions and answers. Tanya.
Sorry, you swapped people and now I was on mute.
I'll swap people, that's fine. We're multitasking here today, and we bimodal. We start with one person and we end with another.
No, exactly. There we go. We're practicing it. So there are some questions here for you. What are the challenges of the road transport market in Africa? Is there a regulation on the driving of road freight fleets in Africa? If yes, what is the driving time of a trailer driver per day and per week? Just considering the countries you mentioned, DRC, Zambia.
The roads are in poor condition, and that's why it is better to take the load as close to its destination point on rail. The rail's also not high-speed rail. We can't run the Gautrain on it. But the drivers at the moment are driving from South Africa up there and getting there. I have been part of a study that we managed during the COVID time. We managed to get a beer truck from Pretoria to Lusaka in 2 days. And we, at the same time, tracked a train, and it took 2 weeks to move cargo up to Lusaka. So the transit times were very, very different, and there's lots of reasons for that. But that's one of the things that RailRunner is looking to address and work with the infrastructure owners in Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, DRC to improve those transit times on rail. And another big advantage is our crossing of borders. We can do that fairly quickly. We can pre-clear a train load of goods for a border, and we can take it from there.
Okay. Can any standard trailer connect to your RailRunner, or would one have to use a trailer supplied by RailRunner?
It's a bespoke trailer. We looked at taking existing trailers and modifying them and making them RailRunner ready. But in our deliberations with the local trailer manufacturers, it was decided that it would be better to trade in the existing trailer, use it as a deposit on the RailRunner trailer. And we have had discussions with all of the banks in South Africa, and they're all very supportive and will be able to finance the RailRunner bespoke trailer. So it is a very bespoke trailer because the front trailer in a train has to be able to pull 40 or 50 units behind it. And under braking, the front trailer has to withstand the braking forces of the other trailers behind it as well. And that's why it's a bespoke trailer.
Okay. How much fuel can you store in the bladder?
As much as the axle load of the rail and road will allow, which is about 23 tons, 24 tons.
Okay. Is the solution better suited to certain product types, example minerals versus fast-moving consumer goods? Is it better suited to SADC solutions, or will it work equally well in South Africa?
It will work equally well in South Africa. We started looking at the Cape Town-Johannesburg corridor. We've worked with the team at Stellenbosch University in identifying the tonnages and the types of freight that move on the Cape Corridor. The Cape Corridor is very interesting in that the freight is balanced. There is almost as much freight moving from Johannesburg to Cape Town as what there is coming from Cape Town to Johannesburg. And it's mainly palletized goods as white goods, and there's palletized goods. So it's very, very amenable to a RailRunner solution.
Okay, thank you for that one. The questions are now coming in. In the regulation of the road transport of goods, which type of trailer truck is much more recommended to fight against the pollution or the environment, sorry?
Look, it's not the trailer that's damaging the environment or creating the greenhouse gases. It's the horse. It's the truck itself with the engine and the burning the diesel and that type of thing. Yes, one can put biodiesel in there. There's a lot of other technology that's going into the truck. And we would study that as well, and we would apply it. So that even though our trucks were not driving the entire distance between Cape Town and Johannesburg, just on the first mile and the last mile, we would apply that type of technology to drop the greenhouse gas production during that period as well.
So for me, this is incredibly interesting. And I mean, rail is a problem in South Africa, without a question of a doubt. Something desperately needs to be done. I mean, us consumers are footing the bill here. And to that point, here comes a question. What is Transnet's position in the solution? Are they on board, and how will they support service levels?
They're on board. We have a hook and haul agreement with Transnet that we have negotiated, which includes a service level agreement, as well as various lease agreements to be able to, as they own all the track in the country, we would have to lease sidings from them, terminals from them, or land around the rail. So we have standard agreements with them. And at the moment, we've now completed our engineering up to the point that we could continue. We now need to manufacture prototypes. We're looking for investment and investors to come on board and assist us with manufacturing the prototypes, which we will then present to all the bodies that need to look at it and approve it and certificate it for operation both on road and on rail. And once that's happened, we will be able to roll out the service to the consumers and the end users.
How long, sorry, you may have said it, but I lost internet connectivity there. How long will this take?
It'll take us, let's call it a year.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a very exciting solution. I mean, I can't, I'm going to speak for myself. I actually can't wait for something like this to happen because it's long overdue.
When I went to the States and saw this, I was gobsmacked, and I just said to them, you know, it took me a year to convince them to come to South Africa because they said, oh, no, who wants to go to deepest, darkest Africa? So now they're quite on board. They understand that we're not deepest, darkest Africa and are just as excited as we are to launch this system and to get it going for the benefit of everybody in South Africa.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, it's obviously not any threat to Transnet. If anything,
Transnet, it's no threat to the trucking fraternity in the country. It will benefit everybody.
Okay.
I had a meeting with the trucking association yesterday, and all they could say to me is, Mike, how can we help?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I mean, I'm very interested to learn more and to keep up to date with what it is that you're doing. So if you are open to it, maybe we can have a webinar with you a little bit later in the year, early next year. I think it's a very exciting initiative. And I think that the people in the supply chain industry in South Africa would definitely be interested to get on board and make use of the service once it's available. So thank you very much for your time. It's really, really exciting presentation. Well, I found it to be. And I really got lots of claps coming through there.
Thank you.
Look forward to learning more about it. I don't know, do you have some time to go to your speaker lounge?
Yes.
So if you go to the button on the left, there's a speaker. Once you leave this room, you go there and you just look for your name and you've got a speaker lounge. And I'm sure there are some people, there's somebody already asking about the speaker booth in the audience. So if you go through there, they can go through and meet you in your speaker booth.
Great, I will do that. Thank you very much for everything. It's been wonderful.
Okay, hold on a second. We're saying here now, maybe go to the table in the lounge because it seats more people. So if you leave the room and go to the lounge, let's pick a table number. Table 10. Table 10. Okay, so Mike's going to be at table 10. Anybody who wants to learn more, please join Mike there. Thank you, Mike, for a great session.
Thank
Fantastic
you very much.
stuff.
Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Cheers. Bye. Okay, we are transferring now. We have a transition break for 10 minutes before our next session. So anybody that wants to take a coffee break, bathroom break, visit exhibitor, network for a few minutes, please do so, and we'll see you in the next session. Thanks for the session. I found it to be extremely exciting. Good things coming our way. I'll catch up with you all a bit later. Thank you. Bye.